What's up YouTube, it's TF Collector, and today I'll be reviewing the Transformers Studios Series Deluxe Class Arachnid from Transformers 1. And before we take a look at the figure, we will of course take a look at her packaging. So right on the front we have a picture of Arachnid in robot and alt mode, transforms in 36 steps. Studio Series Transformers 1, Arachnid, Hasbro. On this side we have a profile image of Arachnid, there's her name, Studio Series 1. On this side the rest of that artwork there, Autobot logo, Studio Series Deluxe Class in all kinds of languages. On the back of the packaging you have a screen grab of Arachnid from the movie Transformers 1. Arachnid, a brief bio here. Arachnid is the surveillance officer for Sentinel Prime. Some other images there of the figure, 36 steps once again, authentic, and a barcode, Hasbro. On the bottom, nothing. On the top, one, Arachnid and Takara Tomy. And one final thing before we dive into the figure, she does of course include her instruction manual. As you can see, 8 and up, there's Arachnid, Studio Series 1, Arachnid, and on the back, Takara and Hasbro. And now, taking a look at the figure itself, here is Arachnid as she appeared in Transformers 1, and they did a great job recreating this Cybertronian jet thing that she was in the movie, but they did really well with this figure. But coming in close on the details, not a whole lot of like specific little details to see, but just they got the shaping perfect of the alt mode, and it was all gray in the movie, so there's not much to complain about. But you can see some little things here on the front that I can assume are guns. And you can see just an alien Cybertronian design with some molded details here and there, whatnot. You do have your spinny propeller that does spin here on the back, so that is very nice. And they did a great job molding this whole section, and a great design overall on this figure. But there's the top, there is the bottom. No landing gears or anything. She kind of just stands on these little areas like so. But overall, a great looking alt mode here for Arachnid. And as far as accessories go, she includes 2, and they are 2 of just the same little blaster here, as you can see, just done in dark gray plastic with a little bit of molded detail and whatnot. But these can store here in the alt mode. Basically, you're just going to tab them in right there on each side. So just tab that one in there, take your other one, tab it in on the other side, and there you go. You have your 2 guns, and she is all armed up and ready for battle. And now rolling through some alt mode comparisons. First here is Arachnid with her boss, Studio Series Sentinel Prime, so you can see how those look together. With her wave mate Alpha Trion. With her rival from the film, Alita 1. And with a CG image of her alt mode from Transformers 1, so you can see just how close and perfect they got this figure to how it appeared in alt mode in the movie. And I think that's about all to say here for the alt mode. Overall, looks really good, very reminiscent to what we saw in the movie. I think they did a great job designing this. But let's go ahead and transform Alita 1. So the first thing we're going to do, you don't have to, but I like to just come under here and remove these 2 little guns that we put on there earlier, just to get them out of the way and give us some more clearance to work. Now there is a lot of steps here, so you're going to have to pay close attention if you're trying to run this with me. But the first thing we're going to do is come under here and just untab these sections here. They just tab right up in there and just rotate them back here on the shoulders just to get them back and out of the way. And the first thing we're going to do is work on these leg sections. So first we want to come here and just untab them from the body there. So bring them out like so. Then you can take this piece and rotate it like so. You kind of want an angle here. That way you're going to be able to rotate that piece around here in a minute. So first, speaking of which, we're going to rotate around right there like so. Then we're going to rotate here at this hinge like so, and then come here and bring this piece forward a little so you can rotate it around on the ball joint that it sits on. And then at the hip itself, you're going to rotate downward like so. You're then going to want to rotate so that this angled sticking out piece is in the back like so. Go ahead and take this piece and bring it up into the leg. That will form her thigh. And then if we come to the side view here, we're going to bring this piece up, and basically you can see there is a little groove for that section there. So just bring this piece up. It will snap right into place like so. And then untab the foot here from the kneecap right there. Just untab that and bring it all the way around. And that is one of Arachnid's legs all done. I am going to show the second part here on camera. That way, if you didn't pick it up the first time, you can this time. So untab here like so. Make sure you bring this piece up to where there is a clearance to rotate it there. So rotate it right there, then rotate it here at the thigh like so. Bring this piece back a little so you have enough room to rotate it around. Rotate at the hip like so, and then rotate so this piece that's sticking out is in the back. And then you can bring this section up and form the thigh. Make sure you have enough clearance for that. You might have to bring the leg down a little. Just bring that section up. And once again, that piece will go into that little cutout for it there. You'll hear it snap right into place. And then untab the foot from the kneecap right there. Swing that around. And there you have her two legs all done. And I'm going to raise the camera up a little bit. And that probably is the most difficult part of this transformation to keep up with. The rest still isn't easy, but you should be able to keep up a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to do is split the arms back here. They just tab together right there. And then basically what you're going to do is you can see these sections are on hinges. They're on double hinges. So just swing them out like so. Swing this other one out like so, and then you're basically just going to push them into the body. So just push them into the body up towards the front like so, and that's how you want that back section looking for. Now the arms should be pushed into the body, and to finish out the arms, you're just going to want to open this piece, swing the hand out, and close that piece over top. Do the same thing over here. Open, swing around, close up, and there you have your arms and legs all finished up. And now we need to work on this top section, for which I'm going to raise us up even higher because she does get a little bit tall here. But the first thing we're going to do is just untab it from the top of her head right in here. So you're just going to want to pull this section out, and as you can see, that tab there just goes into the top of her head. And just begin to bring that section back. I don't tab it in quite yet, so just leave it like that for now. The first thing we do is untab this big section here, and then it will untab down here because it is tabbed in multiple points. Basically, this tab here will go into a slot right there. That tab will go into a slot in those little legs there. And this little tab here will go right in there. So multiple connecting points, but you just want to untab those on each side, and then you're going to rotate them 180 right here. They're on a ball joint, so just rotate them 180 so they are now facing downward. Same thing on this side. Rotate 180 and have them facing downward for now. Now we can work on these legs here. So the first thing we're going to do is split them apart from one another. They do connect at the top and down here at the bottom, so just untab those there. Make sure they untabbed here at the bottom as well. And then we can rotate them 180 degrees. Kind of get the legs out of the way there, but rotate those 180, and then you can extend those out as far as you please. I go to about there, but just extend those outward like that and kind of spread them out so you have room for this section. And what we're going to do here is basically just collapse these two little pieces like so, and that's how you want that looking. And then you're going to be untabbing this piece and rotating it around like so, and then basically bring this section so it is like this and rotate like so. Now what's going to happen is you're going to have a tab that is going to tab into this little piece here. So you want to come down around this way, and you can see that tab will go into that piece there and tab that in. I do find it hard to find that tab sometimes, but as you can see, that will tab right in like that, and that's how you want that section looking. And then you'll bring that whole section back, and it will rest on the back like so. Now I like to go ahead, get her legs out of the way, but go ahead and collapse this piece down, and that tab will go into that slot there. So just bring this down, collapse everything in, tab it all together like so, and then to finish up the upper body, just bring her head out, and now these two tabs will go into those two slots there. Make sure that all lines up like so. Angle her head to where she is looking forward, and for the finishing touches, just come back here and basically angle everything however you want. Me personally, I like to take these pieces and bring them like so. So you can kind of just angle this all however you please. Kind of like that. And that is how you want all of that looking. And when you get all of that done after many steps and a quite complex and difficult transformation, that is Arachnid in her robot mode. And here in robot mode, Arachnid looks great. Just overall a great looking bot. Very movie accurate, but coming in close on the head sculpt, you can see with the silver faceplate and all kinds of the purple eyes going down the sides. Just overall a beautiful head sculpt there. You have some red here on the shoulders. Looks very nice. Overall, just a lot of gray plastic going on, but that is reminiscent to what we saw in the movie, so no complaining from me. But you do have some nice molded details and whatnot. You do have the fans here in her legs. Once again, very movie accurate. And as you can see, you have all kinds of legs and arms. You have her two standing legs. You have these little legs on the back. You have these that are, I guess, supposed to also be legs. So you have legs all over the place, but of course, very reminiscent to the movie. Backpack-wise, you just have this little section, but it doesn't stick out any further than the legs, so can't really complain about that there. Overall, just a really good-looking robot mode. And as far as articulation goes, this is the one aspect of the figure that I wish was a little bit better. Still not terrible due to the design, but could have been a little better. The head is on a ball joint, so you can get a little bit of wiggling and waggling. She can look down. She can't really look up. The head can rotate a full 360, like so. The arms also on ball joints. You can move these tentacle leg things all out of the way, and you can get a full 360 there. You can kind of get a little bit of in and out. The elbows are on ball joints, so you can get elbows, swivels, and a little less than 90 there at the elbow. Nothing at the wrist, nothing at the waist, just due to the design, but the legs can kick forward that far. Backward, can kick all the way back. Very nice there. Outward, you're not going to get much. Now, you can kind of move this piece down and out of the way and get a little bit more, but that's just going to look funky because her thigh is going to be like out to the side. So not much outward movement there. As far as the knee goes, you get about 90 degrees of bend, and you do get thigh rotation. Nothing at the ankle, unfortunately. And while I did a lot of complaining about that on the Alpha Try-On review, I can kind of accept it here because they're these very thin little legs just to keep it movie accurate, and I think it would have been pretty hard to get an ankle pivot in there. Plus, she's a Deluxe, not a $43 Voyager, so she's going to get a pass from me in the ankle pivot department. But overall, articulation, excuse me, could have been slightly better. Now, if you want to consider this as articulation, you can come back here and all of these legs are on all kinds of hinges. You can move these all around, and if that counts as articulation to you, that is some more articulation that you can count for the articulation segment, but that is Arachnid's articulation. And if we bring back in Arachnid's accessories, we do have options. She can hold them if you please, but what I like to do is just plug them right back into the forearm where they were. They're in alt mode. Just tab one in on that side, the other one, tab it in on this side, and there you go. There is Arachnid all armed up and ready for battle. And now rolling through some robot mode comparisons. First, here is Arachnid with her leader, TF1 Sentinel Prime, with Alpha Try-On, Elita 1, and they look really good together, Megatron, B-127 or Bumblebee, Starscream, Optimus Prime, and last but certainly not least, a CG image of how she appeared in Transformers 1, so you can see just how great they did with this figure. So this has been my review for the Transformers Studios Series Deluxe Class Arachnid from Transformers 1, and overall a great job with this figure done by Hasbro. I am still shocked by the way they were able to design and integrate that alt mode into figure form. It looks very, very good, and not to mention the robot mode also is super accurate. They did, of course, give her very obvious legs, as in the movie where she usually walks on her spider legs, but that is more so that way she can stand. If she didn't have those, she'd probably be falling over on the shelf all the time, and no one would like that. And they did still include all of the spider legs there on her back, so she still looks very, very nice. My only only complaint with this figure is I do wish there could have been a little more articulation, maybe a waist swivel, and somehow integrating an ankle pivot of some sort. Not nearly as mad about the lack of ankle pivot on this figure as I was with Alpha Trion, but still would have been nice to have that included. But overall, a great figure in my opinion. If I had to rate Arachnid on a scale of 1 to 10, I am going to give her a solid 9 out of 10. I would certainly recommend this figure if you find her on the shelves. Definitely pick her up, especially if you enjoyed Transformers 1. Now, we are officially, with this review, caught up with my newer Studio Series figures I have gotten over the past few weeks. I do have all kinds of newer Age of the Primes figures to look at, including Micronus Prime, all 5 of the aerial bots, and the newly released Vortex for Bruticus. And I do also have a few other miscellaneous newer figures that I have picked up over the last few months that I want to get a review out for. And once we catch up with all of those reviews, we will be diving back into our journey through the Studio Series. May still have a few weeks before we get to that, but we will get back to those older figures eventually nonetheless. So that's my review for Arachnid. Stay tuned for all of those other reviews, and don't forget, never sacrifice the things you love for the approval of others. I will see you all soon with more reviews, and until then, roll out. Peace!